The night I made the decision to divorce Elias was surprisingly uneventful. Nothing happened. There was no hysterical argument. No resentful cursing. It was simply that he left me alone in the cinema one moment. And the next, he appeared in the alumni group. I heard Jazmin is back in the country? Oh. How many guys will she charm into abandoning their wives and children now? Don't worry. They don't have a say. Senior Lou has already taken care of it. In the photo, my husband was wearing a knee-length black wool coat, holding a bouquet of gardenias. He was embracing his teenage idol. If you looked closely, there were tears falling from the corners of his eyes. Chapter 1. Jazmin returned to the country that day, and Elias didn't come home until midnight. He used the classic excuse every cheating man uses: he'd left me alone before the movie started. I wasn't completely clueless. For a full 4 hours, I knew exactly what they were doing and where they were. I received photos from an unknown number. I knew it all too well. So, when Elias first explained in a tired voice, I patted his hand. I told him, "It's fine." He seemed somewhat uncomfortable. He thought I'd react the way I always used to, whining, trying to get him to make it up to me by giving me another day. He had even prepared to scold me, telling me to be reasonable, but none of it came into play. I took a deep breath, suppressing the pain that was spreading from my heart. I told Elias, "Go clear your head. I need to talk to you." The bathroom light turned on, a soft yellow glow. After a while, there was a sound of something falling to the ground. Elias walked up to me, holding his phone. As usual, he looked calm and collected. "Are you angry about this?" He held up his phone, showing me the photo from the alumni group. "I didn't tell you the truth to avoid pointless arguments. Whenever Jazmin is involved, you lose your mind and throw a tantrum. Just like now." For the first time, I wasn't angry. Instead, I patted the couch, signaling Elias to sit down. Then, I pulled out a document from under the coffee table and handed it to him. "Don't worry. It won't turn into the situation you hate anymore. We should divorce, Elias." Chapter 2. You want a divorce? My best friend from college, Zoe, sat across from me, asking with disbelief, "Really? I don't believe it." I couldn't blame her for feeling that way. After all, she had witnessed my obsession, my pursuit, and my crazy devotion to Elias. She had even seen me and Elias in a huge fight because of Jazmin, and during late-night drinking sessions at the bar, I would remind her, "Don't forget to call Elias later to come pick me up." So, when she asked me again, I answered firmly, "Yes, it's true, I'll be sad, but I won't regret it." She kindly handed me the contact information for a black market service. "I heard you need to make an appointment for a divorce now. This is the most reliable black market guy in my circle. He just started offering a divorce appointment service." I thanked her sincerely. Zoe asked me what I planned to do next. To be honest, I didn't know. As she said, getting a divorce was difficult these days, especially when one party refuses to cooperate. Elias said he had no plans to divorce. The night I confronted him, he simply packed his things and went to the office. Before leaving, he stubbornly assumed I was just stirring trouble because of Jazmin. He sighed helplessly. "Virginia, it's irresponsible and childish to threaten divorce over a small issue. You're an adult now. Stop playing these games." How ridiculous. In a marriage where we should have cared for and understood each other, he demanded that I be independent like an outsider. Yet, he flew across the country once a month, worried that his 3 years older Jazmin wouldn't take care of herself abroad. If I hadn't discovered it by accident, he would have planned to hide it from me for the rest of our lives. That night, I lay in bed. I thought I'd cry myself to sleep and suffer from insomnia, but instead, I fell into a surprisingly deep, peaceful sleep. I even had a dream. I dreamed of the first time I met Elias. It was the year I turned 18. Right after I finished the college entrance exams, my parents couldn't wait to package me up and sell me off for a good price. I resisted, but it was useless, so I eventually came to terms with it. The thing I couldn't accept was attending 3 different banquets a day. It made me feel like I was a worker in a special profession, from one bed to another. So, when my parents were talking to others in front of me, I ran to the bathroom, took off my cumbersome dress, and changed into a simple white t-shirt and light blue jeans. I ran out along a small path. I considered myself a Barbie princess, and this was my brave escape, dreaming that the road ahead led to light and hope. But I underestimated the mosquitoes of July. I had only walked for about 20 minutes, and the Barbie princess was nearly drained of blood by them. I made a mistake and forgot that the banquet was held halfway up a mountain. That's when Elias appeared. The car window rolled down, and when I saw his face, I couldn't help but whistle in my mind. As two well-known figures in the second-generation circle, I had a feeling of mutual understanding with him. But unlike my fame from being hate to get married, his fame came from falling in love with a poor student. That night, two kindred spirits went crazy, drank together on a bridge, and had a heart-to-heart on the roadside in the middle of the night. Then, someone with good intentions took a photo and spread it widely, and that was how we ended up getting engaged. Somewhat hazily, we hit it off right away. I covered up his dates with Jazmin, and he helped me deal with my family's endless moral coercion. It gave me some breathing room, and I even had a chance to pick up my old passion for photography. During those days, the three of us really lived well together. So, when did I start having different feelings for him? I think it was after Jazmin went abroad. I don't know how Elias' mother found out about our relationship, or how she told Jazmin, but the final result was that Jazmin got married. During that time, Elias was confused and muddled, but he still made sure to take care of me. After he once again clashed with my parents and suggested I donate a kidney to a rich family in B City, I said to him, "Elias, maybe we should give it a try." He gave a bitter smile. "Are you trying to chase me?" I nodded. From that day on, I became Elias' shadow. I did everything I could to create opportunities to meet him, bringing him breakfast, checking on him. All were small matters. I even wrote him love letters, declaring my love for him as though speaking to Mount Everest. I never thought of giving up, until our first anniversary after marriage. I found out that he and Jazmin had sworn their vows and exchanged rings in a small church abroad. What did he say? He said, "I just went to help." Jazmin's husband was too busy to attend the wedding, and the venue we booked couldn't go to waste. We're just friends. If there was really something between us, how could she marry someone else before me? Virginia, I've really let go. I believed his words. I told him, "I believe that I love you," you said at the wedding. "So I'm giving you 3 chances. After 3 chances, whether you want to or not, there will be no future for us." And this time, it just so happens to be the 3rd chance. Chapter 3. The alumni group became lively again because of Jazmin's return. They were encouraging a reunion, to block Elias. I decided to go too. Since the night I confronted him about the divorce, I hadn't been able to contact him for 7 days. The divorce agreement I sent to his company received no response. When I called his assistant, they always said he was either on a business trip or in a meeting. He couldn't possibly be that busy. It was just cold violence, a tactic to force me to back down first. This was his favorite move. Divorce was a long-term battle, either multiple court appearances or 2 years of separation to meet the legal requirements. Although I had mentally prepared for this, I still wanted to find a chance to talk to him, hoping to end this marriage, which had become a joke, as soon as possible. The reunion was set at an old restaurant outside our alma mater. I arrived just in time to see Jazmin leaving. In the narrow hallway, it wasn't really a good place to talk, but she stubbornly blocked my path, lighting a cigarette with practiced ease. She said, "Are you getting a divorce? Actually, there's no need to pressure him to choose between you and me this way, because no matter what, you'll always be the loser." 7 years, and there are still people who haven't figured out their position? Just as I was about to curse her out, she suddenly changed her expression. The challenge on her face turned to pity as she tightly gripped my hand. "Mrs. Liu, you've misunderstood me. There's really nothing between me and your husband. What happened back then was so long ago. I didn't expect you'd still care about it. I came back just to see family and friends. I'll leave as you wish, but can you not make it today? Please spare me some face. I just want to have a meal with them." "It's just a meal." I was stunned by how quickly her demeanor changed. Then, out of nowhere, a strong hand pushed me against the greasy wall. Elias stood there, his jaw clenched, veins bulging on his forehead. Didn't I tell you to stay away from her? I reacted instantly, slapping him twice across the face. Pointing at Jazmin, I said, "You provoke me, and hitting you is illegal. But at the end of the day, it's because of this man that we're in this mess. So from now on, if you provoke me again, I'll hit him again. We'll see how many times his face can withstand a slap." I pulled the divorce agreement out of my bag and threw it at Elias's face. "I'm here for a divorce, so stop adding drama to it." Downstairs, I paid the boss 500 yuan to get access to the staircase security footage. I then sent it to the Liu family's group chat. Chapter 4. I had no time to care about the storm that the video would stir up in the Liu family, nor did I intend to cry in front of those sharp-tongued relatives, asking them to back me up. Instead, I quickly moved out of my home with Elias. To me, marriage and divorce were not trivial matters. Once a decision was made, it should be cut swiftly and decisively. Wasting time in meaningless entanglements only made people think you were playing hard to get. Questioning your sincerity, the small 3-bedroom apartment was a property left to me by my nanny grandmother, who raised me when I was little. It was also my secret hideout. Once, Elias and I shared moments of joy in every corner of this place. Back then, he'd hold me and say that forever was too far, that loving each other for a lifetime would be enough. Now, our outcome was no different from most couples in this world. After the hassle of moving out, I lay on the couch and began searching for Jazmin. We used to be jewelry design students together, but during the 7 years I was apart from Elias, she switched careers to become a theater actress. Starting from a small theater in London, she worked her way up, and now she had a decent reputation in the industry. She had her own social media account, which wasn't hard to find. With nearly 1 million followers, she was signed with an MCN agency. She had posted several vlogs about returning to China, hyping up her live streaming event in 3 days. At that moment, I was so glad I had the habit of recording my life. I opened my notes and cloud account, selected a PowerPoint template I liked, and arranged every encounter between Elias and Jazmin since our marriage in chronological order. It looked perfect. For 4 years, Elias had been flying back and forth to London every month. There were their couple's ski gear, and the birthday gifts Elias prepared for Jazmin every year, matching her age in quantity. The logic was clear and impeccable. Anyone who saw it would praise them as a loving couple. Then, the moment she began her live stream, I posted it, with their names trending on the hot search, followed by the keyword affair, and the explosive red scandal. Jazmin's first live stream, which should have been a big success, ended in a chaotic mess. Chapter 5. As expected, my phone was bombarded with calls from them, especially from my mother-in-law. Her sharp voice had such penetration that even through the phone, it gave me a headache. I wouldn't have put up with her in the past, but today I took a deep breath and shouted into the phone, "Old hag, I won't give you any more face." Then, I hung up and blocked her in one go. Elias's mother never really liked me. She had no other choice. After all, between Jazmin and me, she had to choose me for her son. The first fight Elias and I had was because of her. Back then, we were newlyweds, and she liked to make surprise attacks, barging into our bedroom at any time, uninvited. She criticized me for everything, and I endured it for Elias's sake, until one day, in front of me, she slowly said, I preferred Elias's ex-girlfriend. That was the first time she saw my methods. I went wild, shouting and kicking her out of my territory. From then on, I stopped attending any family events at the Liu house, letting her be mocked by others. That night, I was feeling low, burying my head under the blanket, trying to sleep away my misery. Elias rushed back from the company, walked into the bedroom, and silently watched me for a long time before speaking. Virginia, you got mad at Mom. I stayed silent, and Elias lost his temper. He dragged me out of the bed, half threatening, half advising. Virginia, that's my mom. I grabbed everything I could reach and threw it at him. So what? She's your mom. So what? Do I have to endure it, even when she deliberately brings up Jazmin in front of me? Later, I realized it was all about me apologizing, wasn't it? Fine, I'll apologize then. In the middle of the night, wearing pajamas, hair messy, I got in the car and drove straight to the Liu family's old house. I was holding a fruit knife in my hand. I grabbed her by the back of her neck and sped toward the airport, changing gears and stepping on the gas. I calmly said to her, "Regret it, huh? I'm taking you to the airport, buying you a ticket, so you can go and bring her back. How about that?" She clung tightly to the car roof handle, shrinking in my passenger seat, trembling uncontrollably. She said, "I'm sorry. I was wrong. It was so close. I almost delivered her to the check-in counter." After that, my reputation was ruined in the Liu family. I became petty and vengeful. I wouldn't allow anyone to enjoy themselves by stepping on me. Chapter 6. Elias's call came later than his mother's. Just by the sound of his voice, I could feel his exhaustion. The moment the call was connected, we both held our breath, neither of us speaking first. We waited for an unknown amount of time before a helpless sigh came through the phone. Then, he gently called my nickname, Vivi. "Stop messing around." At that moment, I suddenly realized that Elias had never respected me. Not in our past marriage, and certainly not now. He stubbornly believed that my request for a divorce and the methods I used to achieve it were all efforts to save our marriage. I had loved too openly, too obviously before, which gave him the confidence to act however he pleased. I thought about it for a long time, carefully choosing my words before I slowly said, "You must be secretly pleased, right? You think that with your young goddess by your side and a wife, legally bound, desperately trying to win you back, you have homes on both sides of the world. Elias, you can't be both pathetic and filthy, can you?" It seemed my words angered him deeply, and when he spoke again, his tone was tinged with a kind of absurdity. "Virginia, I assure you, the position of Mrs. Liu will always be yours. In the end, I'll definitely return to our home. Stop obsessing over Jazmin. You have no idea how much trouble you've caused her. Everyone is overwhelmed. So what does that have to do with me?" I shot back. "Whether I'm being laughed at in the alumni group or being slandered online, isn't that all something you two brought upon yourselves? I absolutely refuse to sit idly by while she and you keep acting like this in public. I won't tolerate it anymore. I'll fight back, even if it's self-destructive. I want her to be labeled as despicable and low from the start. She won't make a cent off your name." Elias and I fell into an endless cold war. As if to spite me, he attended several events with Jazmin in tow over the next few days. She accompanied him as his date. They looked perfect together, and the atmosphere was filled with ambiguity. Some friends tried to mediate, speaking about her hardships. They really don't have anything left between them. They just ended things so badly before that it left a mental block. She's had a tough time in those years abroad. In her first marriage, she only got a child, and with live streaming to make money for her kid, she's ended up owing a lot of penalty fees because of you. Virginia, your husband is a rare gem of a man. Be magnanimous and let everyone live in peace. I immediately severed ties with that friendship. Instead, I asked this mutual friend to talk to Elias, urging him to make things right with me and part on good terms. In the end, I wished for his wife to find a man who was as good-looking as Elias, just like Jazmin had found. That earned me a scolding from my friend. Chapter 7. As the year came to an end, Liu family's useless rules multiplied. I didn't want to attend those meaningless family dinners with Elias, but his grandfather called, and I had no choice but to go. Grandpa Liu was a very kind elder. Our wedding with Elias had been a chaotic mess, especially with my parents' behavior, which led to disapproval and disdain from many relatives on his side. Aside from friends, almost no one stayed until the end of the ceremony. Only Grandpa Liu, humming the wedding march, clapped and congratulated us on becoming husband and wife. By chance, my car and Elias's car met at the old family gate. Jazmin was sitting in the passenger seat. Both of them wore the same indifferent expression, though Jazmin had a slight sneer. After getting out of the car, Elias gently supported Jazmin's waist, whispering something in her ear. If this scene were a painting, I'd be the awkward outsider, disrupting their harmony, but I could never learn to endure. I stormed forward, yanking Jazmin's hair and pulling her back. Lu family's fallen so low that even a wild chicken can walk in through the front door. Jazmin collapsed into Elias's arms. Tears welled in her eyes as she looked at me, yet her lips curled into a mocking smile. Elias's face darkened, grabbing my hand. "What are you doing?" "My mom invited her. There's a serious matter tonight." I wasn't afraid. "So what?" "Don't say it's your mom. Even if it was your ancestors who invited her, I'd still lay my hands on her." We walked in together. Elias seemed to be worried that I might do something to Jazmin, staying close to her the entire time. Lu family's relatives were scattered around the living room in small groups. Elias was busy checking if Jazmin had any injuries, while I was left isolated at the side. I hated the old Lu family home, even though it was brightly lit and spotless. It felt suffocating, as if a lingering smell of decay hung in the air. Elias's mother was sitting among the other women, her gaze awkwardly drifting when it met mine. But when she saw Elias, she suddenly straightened her back. She was dressed up for the occasion and, when speaking to me, raised her voice a little higher than usual. "You haven't even entered the door, and you're already causing such a scene. No manners." I smiled. "I wanted to ask you. Elias said Jazmin was invited by you. What's going on? Are you trying to follow in your husband's footsteps? Gathering your husband's mistresses to celebrate the new year together?" Elias's father had no shortage of mistresses. One year during Chinese New Year, they all fought to stay up for the new year, so he gathered everyone together for a terrifying New Year's Eve. It made his mother so angry she was sick for months. Maybe my words were too shocking, but the relatives fell silent, not daring to speak up and ease the tension. Elias's mother slowly turned the prayer beads in her hand and spoke. "Don't be so petty. Stop focusing on what's going on in my son's bed. Broaden your perspective. Today, I invited Jazmin because there's an important matter to discuss. Her live stream was messed up because of you. As an apology, I had Elias arrange for Jazmin to become the brand ambassador for Swan." She then pretended to ask, "Virginia, you're not angry, are you?" Her words made my heart tighten. I grabbed the bottle of red wine on the coffee table. I couldn't tell if I was angry or heartbroken. I only knew that I felt so devastated at that moment. I thought my heart might jump out of my chest. I glared at Elias, gritting my teeth. Whose idea was this? He stood up to come toward me, but Jazmin tugged at the corner of his shirt, forcing him to stop. His mother leisurely added, "You should understand that Jazmin, as a single mother, has a hard time raising her child. Everything costs money. Why should you be so petty and block her income?" "And you?" I looked at Elias, questioning, "Do you agree with this?" He was more resolute than anyone, saying, "Virginia, I owe her a lot, and I want to make it right." As soon as he finished, I hurled the wine bottle at his head. Someone screamed in shock. The bottle shattered, and it was unclear whether the liquid on the floor was blood or wine. My hatred exploded. Everyone knew that Swan was a niche jewelry brand under the Lu family. Its name symbolized the journey from the past to the future. Like an ugly duckling turning into a swan, endless exploration, and infinite possibilities. It was Elias's love for me. It was the gift he gave me when we got married. And now, the Swan brand was sacrificed to his goddess, used by his mother as a tool to humiliate me. In that moment, I made up my mind. Good terms? Fuck that. I wiped the sweat off my hands and remembered that Grandpa Lu was still waiting upstairs. I took a deep breath to calm myself. Then, I walked up to Elias's mother, gently adjusted her falling shawl, and softly said, "Mom, I don't hit elders, that would be rude, but you always provoke me, so what should I do? In that case, I'll hit your son. I've said this to Jazmin as well. If I hit you, it's illegal, but if I hit him, it's family business. I hope you all remember this. Otherwise, reminding you over and over again is really tiring." I felt her body tremble under my hand. Some of the aunts, who I used to call aunt, scolded me for being rude and disrespectful. One aunt, who had married into the capital from the countryside, said in broken words that I was too fierce and stupid. Men, they're all cheap men, as long as they're good enough for now. It's fine, love them while you can, but if you don't love them anymore, just divorce. I blinked my eyes and replied, Before I made up my mind to divorce, I thought the same. But for some reason, the moment the thought appeared in my mind, I suddenly saw the marriage certificate we had placed in our bedroom from when we first got married. At the time, he was so busy with work he couldn't take time off for a honeymoon or to take wedding photos. He was full of guilt, pulling me into his arms and apologizing repeatedly. I still remember him sitting under the dim yellow light, wearing his gold-rimmed glasses, carefully writing out each invitation letter. Perhaps we truly loved each other once, and that's why it was so hard to endure these flaws. Chapter 8. I went to see Grandpa Lou. After the winter, his health had declined, and he rarely appeared in public. The housekeeper told him about the incident downstairs, and he nodded at me with a pleased expression. Good. You can protect yourself. He gave me a lot of money, as well as some jewelry and property he had collected. I asked him, "Is this a voluntary gift? I'm planning to divorce Elias, and if you ask for it after the divorce, I won't return it." He smiled happily, even tears coming to his eyes. "It has nothing to do with him. These are things I want to give to you. I know he's wronged you, and I know you're good to me. Among all my granddaughters-in-law, I only regret that you two couldn't make it work. Fate has other plans. I still remember when you two were about to get married." His eyes were sparkling, just like when he was a teenager, blushing and shy as he said he was marrying the girl he loved. "Virginia, I'm old, and I can't control you anymore. I can only use these things to wish you well in the future." The difficulties from my mother-in-law and Jasmine's provocations hadn't saddened me, but Grandpa Lou's gentle words at this moment made me break down in tears. I cried uncontrollably, asking Grandpa, "Why did things end up like this between us?" Grandpa Lou patted my head gently. "If he's not the one, don't cry for him anymore." "Yes, I won't cry for him anymore." Chapter 9. The day Jazmin was officially announced as the brand ambassador for Swan was also New Year's Eve. As the clock struck midnight, all the LED screens and billboards in the city changed to show her poster. A netizen asked, "Did the original wife lose?" I replied from a fake account, "Still fighting." The word fighting quickly surged to the top of the trending topics. Many netizens left comments under the brand's official account. "Can't spray this. She can really sell. How long is this girl going to sell? If I had this kind of perseverance, I'd be successful at anything." After the announcement, there were several live streams for the brand. Swan's target customers ranged from students to white-collar workers. In the past, my love story with Elias had been its best advertisement, and Swan, under my management, had even established a women's fund, using part of the revenue to help women from all age groups through difficult times. Now, countless women who had purchased Swan began supporting me. They flooded the live stream, leaving messages during Jasmine's broadcast, openly resisting the new brand ambassador. I couldn't tell whether it was a public relations strategy or Jasmine's own doing. During her live stream, she pretended to accidentally say some unpleasant things. With tears in her eyes, she smiled and choked up during the peak viewer count, saying, "It's not about who speaks first, and whose words are considered facts." I admit that I had a relationship with Elias, the CEO of Lou Corporation. We were young and in love, and we decided to get married right after graduation and go to Iceland for our wedding photos. But the one who became Mrs. Lou was Virginia, who once followed me around, called me sister, and said she would be my bridesmaid. Those who are clear have nothing to hide. I don't want to keep being insulted, but some things are in the past, and I won't mention them anymore. The shift in public opinion happened in the blink of an eye. I had planned to use intimate photos with Elias and the timestamps as evidence to refute her, but when I logged into the cloud account, it was completely empty. Everything had been deleted. It was Elias, who shared a family account with me, who had done this. For Jazmin, he had placed me in the middle of a grand online assault. Chapter 10. I was quickly attacked by online trolls and doxxed. Many self-proclaimed justice warriors went to my old neighborhood, splattering paint on my door and loudly blasting offensive, vulgar words. Even worse, some sent me death threats. The day I moved to a hotel, Jasmine's car was parked across the street. She rolled down her window, wearing sunglasses, no longer the weak woman she used to be in front of Elias. She had a mocking smile on her face and gave me the middle finger before driving away. Zoe, holding my sketchbook, was furious, gasping for breath. Aren't you going to do something about her? Actually, the day after the public backlash started, I had already restored the chat data that could prove Jasmine's lies. But then I suddenly realized, why should I prove myself? It was her who slandered me, so it should be her who provides evidence. What I needed to do was gather evidence during the peak of the uproar, and then sue those who mercilessly insulted me online, including Jazmin. So, there was no rush. I could wait until the spread was wider and the penalty heavier before taking action. Chapter 11. I never expected to run into Hugh in B City while looking for a ruby for my client. I guess it's true what they say, when love fails, career succeeds. My jewelry studio received a big order. A lady had asked me to design a piece of jewelry for her daughter's 18th birthday. A ruby would be perfect for a July birthday. We met at the airport. I looked at him in surprise, wide shoulders, long legs, a beige coat, and a well-tailored business suit underneath. He looked just as handsome as he did when we were younger, but more mature. It had been years since we last saw each other, and there was a slight distance between us. He awkwardly scratched his nose. Zoe was worried about you, so she asked me to be your local guide. We had known each other since we were kids, and we could even call ourselves childhood sweethearts. Though after I got together with Elias, he wasn't happy with me and Hugh being so close. So, we started avoiding each other, and our contact became less frequent. The night over Victoria Harbor was stunning, with fireworks lighting up the sky. He took me to explore some street food stalls. In a 100-year-old shop, it was crowded, and we were squeezed into a small corner, eating our meals close together. Winter iced lemon tea tasted even more refreshing than in summer, sending shivers down my spine with each sip. In the noisy and bustling atmosphere, we didn't mention our recent lives, instead reminiscing about the past. Is the milk tea shop by the school gate still open? It's still open, but the owner has changed, although the decoration hasn't. Really? I haven't been there in years. The previous owner even mentioned you. I used to go buy milk tea, and she asked me what happened to the guy who used to wear a leather coat in winter and always had the collar up. I haven't seen him in a long time. Hugh slurped his noodles, his ears turning bright red. He said incredulously, "That was so many years ago. And she still remembers? Oh my God. I hate it when people bring up the stupid things I did in my rebellious phase." I teased him. "Well, you were the one who refused to wear a down jacket all winter just to look cool, and you'd drape it over your arm instead." He put down his chopsticks, wiped his mouth, and replied, "You're not any better. Remember how you fished all the principal's goldfish out of the pond to feed the vice principal's cat? In that lively, smoky restaurant." We laughed heartily at each other. It felt so good. I received a call from Elias' secretary a week after I landed in B City. He was worried but didn't want to embarrass himself by contacting me directly, so he had his secretary ask when I would be returning. With the new year approaching, there were many things to prepare at home. I had the secretary relay my message to him: couples who are getting divorced shouldn't spend the new year together. If anything comes up, please contact my lawyer. When Elias heard this, he was at Jasmine's place, helping her review the will of her second husband. The will mentioned Jazmin, leaving her a useless, charming old castle, whether she lived in it or not. The maintenance costs each year were shockingly high. The legal jargon was complex, so Jazmin had asked Elias to help her out. He had been at her place all day, from morning until late in the evening, going through the documents. Only around 9 p.m. did he have time to stop and hear the secretary relay my message. "We'll stop for today." He looked at Jazmin. Jazmin was dressed in a white satin nightgown, still looking like the woman he remembered. But the love he once felt for her had long since faded. Suddenly, he wanted to see Virginia, his wife. He quickly packed up his things, not noticing Jasmine's forced smile. As he hurried, a warm feeling tugged at his wrist. "Are you leaving? I have a video call with the kid tonight." "Stay. He wants to talk to his dad." The child was an accident, and that night had been an accident too. Jazmin claimed the child was his, and to avoid upsetting her, they never mentioned the need for a paternity test. But the more she brought up the child, the more he wanted to see his wife. He left in a rush. The car stopped downstairs at the company. and he decided to work overtime tonight to clear his schedule for the next few days, planning to go to B City to see his wife. As for the divorce, he had never really taken it seriously. He knew his wife loved him, and he also knew she didn't have much family. Divorce was just a phase, the 7-year itch, a little persuasion, and everything would be fine. Chapter 12. My driver's license wasn't valid in B City. To make things easier, Hugh had arranged for a driver to pick me up and take me around these past few days. At the auction, I was incredibly lucky and managed to win the ruby I had my eye on with little effort. After the paperwork was done, the driver asked me where I wanted to go. Without hesitation, I said, Victoria Peak. I wanted to find some inspiration and also sort out my thoughts. I found a random spot to rest and wait for the sunset. Holding a hot cocoa in my hands, it kept me warm but was starting to feel a bit too sweet. I had barely settled in and hadn't finished my drink when I heard Hugh's voice from behind. Cold? Not really. We both spoke at the same time, and he gestured for me to go first. I asked, tired? He smiled and looked at the sunset. Not tired. The truth was, I didn't just want to ask him if he was tired these past few days. I wanted to ask if he had been tired all these years. The day before, Mrs. Lee had invited me to dinner. After the college entrance exam, she had left in a hurry with Hugh, and because of my parents, I had missed the chance to see them off. It had been a long time since we last met. Mrs. Lee now had a few more fine lines around her eyes, but she was still as graceful and beautiful as I remembered. She was a nostalgic person. She had even kept many things from my childhood. This is your first English award. You said you wanted to thank me for tutoring you, so you gave it to me and even added my name on it. And this book. It was a prize from when you and Hugh did a social practice project together. He used to read it every night and almost had it memorized. Mrs. Lee wiped the frame of a photo and, somewhat awkwardly, said to me, I met Hugh's father when we studied abroad. After we married, I found out that his family was well off in B City and had a lot of rules. I just couldn't accept it. So I divorced him and came back to Bay City alone. My health wasn't good back then, and 3 months later, I discovered I was pregnant with Hugh. Being a single mother all these years, looking back, I don't feel tired. That year, during the college entrance exams, Hugh's grandfather was ill, and the old man begged me to come back to B City. But that old man hung on to life for years. He sent Hugh to England, and we were so poor that we couldn't come back to see you. The next time I heard about you was when I saw your invitation. Hugh originally wanted to confess to you after the exams, but that old man's stubbornness made him miss so many years. Mrs. Lee probably thought that I had already divorced and came to B City for a vacation to clear my mind. She wanted to comfort me, but was worried that she might say the wrong thing. So, she pushed her son forward. Virginia, if you're feeling upset, you can go out with my son. After all, he hasn't had a girlfriend all these years, and all the arranged blind dates failed. He's still clean. I blushed deeply and waved my hand at Mrs. Lee. She lowered her voice and added, he's healthy too, so you can have fun with him. I became even more embarrassed. After the reminiscing, I tilted my head to look at Hugh's profile. The light from the sunset bathed his face, and it effortlessly made me think of the past. I suggested, why don't you go find 2 blades of grass and play that game we used to play when we were kids? He called me childish and said I was too competitive. Every time we played that game, when I was about to win, you'd reach out and mess up my grass. It was pointless. Exactly. They all say I'm too competitive. I looked down at my feet. That's why I have to win against Elias. I can't let him find any dirt on me in the divorce case. Hugh understood what I meant. Do you want me to introduce you to some top lawyers? No need. My lawyer is quite good. I stood up, took a couple of steps, and turned back to look at him. Let's go. Take me back to the hotel. I'm curious to try the new sports car Hugh young master bought. He lowered his head, muttering, what young master? Chapter 13. At the hotel entrance, Hugh didn't get out of the car. We exchanged a quick wave and said, see you next time. Just as the elevator doors were about to close, Elias suddenly appeared. I didn't know how he found me, but I felt like he had lost his mind. When the elevator reached my floor, he dragged me out with force, pulling me toward the fire exit. In the dim light, He trapped me between his arms, pressing my face against his like an abandoned dog, sniffing the scent on me. Is this fun, Virginia? Why don't you tell me the truth? Weren't you here for work? Why did he send you back to the hotel, Virginia? I want to lock you up in a place where only I can find you. Then we can go back to how things used to be. I managed to free one of my hands and slapped him twice. Are you sober now? He rubbed his face and, after a moment, his expression returned to normal. He straightened up, saying, moving house? Seeing old friends? Virginia, you've had enough fun. It's time to go back. Maybe it was because I had always been easy to placate in front of Elias that he got the wrong idea, thinking that, no matter how big the issue, a little coaxing would make everything go away. He took my hand and placed it on his face. It felt like he was whining. You've been hitting me a lot lately. My face hurts. I know what bothers you. Me and Jazmin, those are old matters. Giving her an endorsement was just to let her make some pocket change. Don't hold it against me, okay, dear? I yanked my hand away. It's not about holding a grudge. It's about what should have been mine. Elias, you're smart enough to know I'm not joking. So stop pretending and making excuses for your infidelity. Elias stood still, took out his phone, and scrolled through it. Tomorrow's noon flight, you're coming home with me. Before leaving, he gently kissed my forehead. I pulled out my phone and called the police. Help. I've been assaulted. Chapter 14. Thanks to Elias, I got to experience B City's deep night. At the police station, Elias's lawyer kept defending him by calling it a family dispute. But the hotel surveillance cameras clearly showed him as the one committing the violence. Hugh had arranged for a lawyer to communicate on my behalf. I said, keep him here for now. Don't let him get back to the mainland. The Liu family had the resources to bail him out. As for me, I needed to use every moment to return and deal with the dog he had raised. I booked the earliest flight back to Bay City. When I took off, I issued a lawyer's letter to Jazmin, demanding she return the marital property she had taken and retract her false accusations against me. Upon landing, I worked nonstop with my lawyer to submit the case for filing. At first, Jazmin didn't take the lawyer's letter or the court summons seriously. She continued attending events with the same calm demeanor, even mentioning the case during an interview. Virginia and I were both design students. The worst thing in design is being plagiarized, or having someone steal your work. But clearly, Virginia does this all the time. As the situation developed, an online campaign to #AbuseVirginia gained traction. But none of this affected my mindset. The harsher the criticism, the more inspired I became. I designed the ruby as a bright, new sun, surrounded by 4 or 5 matching colored diamonds, supported by petals wrapped around it. It was the best piece I had made in recent years, so I submitted it to a jewelry design competition. However, I didn't expect them to dig up my entry information. Jazmin even posted a video, asking the organizing committee why they accepted a piece from someone with questionable morals and a history of plagiarism. Her followers went wild, flooding the committee with emails demanding they disqualify me. What caught my attention was her accusation of plagiarism. Every piece I created was like my child. For her to say that was a blatant insult. Meanwhile, the entire internet started promoting Jazmin as the #GeniusDesignGirl. That night, in Jazmin's live stream, she pulled out a design that was 80% similar to mine. She claimed it was a gift to herself for her birthday, designed back in college. On camera, she openly accused me of being a vile, lowly plagiarist. My phone, email, and messages were flooded with abusive words. Even my employer sent me a message. Virginia, I need an explanation. Chapter 15. They never expected that I would, on a whim, record the entire process of creating my design. It was probably because I was so satisfied with it. In less than 3 days, I managed to put together 56 hours of footage, and I uploaded it online. Then, I started checking the studio's surveillance footage. The footage clearly showed Elias's mother. She first stood at the door, tried the password several times, and when she couldn't get in, she made a phone call. The call screen clearly displayed Elias's name. I had already changed all the passwords and removed Elias's access from the studio's backend. Then, my assistant opened the door for her, the main door. and the door to the safe where I kept my design drafts. Because Elias had transferred her 5,000 yuan, she took several photos of my design drafts with her phone, then put them back and left. I released the unedited footage. The next second, everyone panicked. Chapter 16. Elias had just escaped B City and returned to Bay City, where he immediately found himself caught in public controversy. He accused me of being too extreme in my actions. Virginia, you've called her mom before. Don't you feel guilty treating her this way? I shrugged. I didn't ask her to steal it. Seizing the moment, I presented a new divorce agreement, demanding that Elias leave with nothing. After reading it, he still said the same thing. I don't agree to the divorce. He seemed to be making a great concession. I won't interfere with Jazmin anymore. If you want to hold her accountable, whether it's for compensation or prison time, it's up to you. I have one condition: don't divorce me. Jazmin was standing beside him. She clutched Elias's arm tightly. No, think about the child. He can't have a mother in prison. Jazmin even picked up a tissue box from the table and threw it at me. I dodged it nonchalantly. Elias, you don't have the right to talk to me. Either you leave everything behind, and I won't sue your mother, or you wait for your mother to spend the rest of her life being ridiculed. Elias's mother was completely panicked. She lowered her stance, rushing forward to fight with Jazmin. While struggling, she yelled, "It's all your fault. You told me to steal the design drafts. You said you could make Virginia listen to me. You bitch." I handed the decision over to Elias. His posture slumped, his back hunched, and with a tremor in his voice, he asked, "Virginia, do you still love me, love?" I could only say that. In my early 20s, the Virginia who still believed in fairy tales wanted all of Elias's love. But now, at 27, after a marriage filled with betrayal and failure, the Virginia I had become only wanted all of Elias's wealth. I no longer loved him. Chapter 17. On the day Elias transferred all his assets to me and we successfully finalized our divorce, the internet was flooded with public apology videos from all those haters who had once criticized me. My legal battles had ended in total victory. The ones who had hurled the worst insults, spread the most vicious rumors, and stirred up the most trouble were sentenced to 2 years in prison. The rest were ordered to pay compensation and issue apologies. Some tried to escape punishment by claiming ignorance, poverty, or their status as students, but I refused to make any reconciliations. Others came forward, accusing me of being unreasonable and petty. To that, I could only say, why is it that when they insult me, they want the whole world to hear, but when they apologize, they want it to be a private matter only between us? As for Jazmin and the assistant who betrayed me, the former not only had to repay the marital assets and compensation but also had to buy the necklace she had so maliciously slandered. Meanwhile, I would continue to have endless bursts of inspiration, but her life had already reached its end. The latter received a 6-month prison sentence. I put in some effort to make sure they were both sent to the same detention facility, hoping they'd look after each other. Elias's mother spent both money and effort to get Jazmin's child back to the country, only to find out after 7 working days that the child wasn't her grandson at all. I heard she was so overwhelmed by the shock that she choked and ended up in the hospital for half a month. Chapter 18. Once everything had settled, I packed my things and decided to celebrate my divorce victory with a trip. On the day of my departure, I ran into Elias again at the train station. He was wearing a windbreaker, standing in front of me looking exhausted. "Virginia, give me one more chance. I want to win you back." I thought for a moment and then held up my train ticket and said, "When I was in college, I always wanted to go to Tibet and visit Lhasa. I wanted to see the poet Gyatso from the books and the Potala Palace from the photos. I'll be staying in Lhasa for 7 days. No fixed itinerary, just wandering around. If we happen to meet on the streets of Lhasa, then I'll give you that chance." That day, Elias watched me board the train, and then immediately went to buy a plane ticket. But I got off the train halfway, bought a ticket for the next available train, and this time, my destination was Dalinga, the place I'd only heard of in poetry. As the train slowly pulled away, the rugged, desolate beauty of the Northwest gradually unfolded before my eyes. During my 7 days in Dalinga, time seemed to move so slowly. The relaxed, Easygoing pace of life loosened my bones. On the evening of the 7th day, while attending a bonfire party at the guest house, I received a call from Elias. He was choking up on the other end. "Virginia, I can't find you," I openly admitted. "Yeah, I didn't go." He asked. "Why?" There were no reasons. The request was made on a whim. I had never planned on opening a new chapter with him. Besides, travel should be joyful, and I didn't want to encounter trash. 7 years had already shown me he wasn't worth it. And this chasing my wife back act, where someone tries to redeem themselves after trampling on another's heart, was downright disgusting. I said his name seriously. "Elias, do you know why I wanted you to go to Lesau? Because I knew you'd get altitude sickness, and I hoped you'd die there. End it all. Having had a marriage with you is like having a criminal record, whether you're good or bad from now on. Don't contact me again." I accepted that I had misjudged him, accepted that I wasn't loved, accepted that my efforts had gone unreturned, accepted that my sincerity had places it could never reach. What I had to do now was admit my mistake, pay the price, and leave swiftly, never to trap myself in a city with no future. I will always believe that I have the courage to start over. So, tonight, here in Dalinga, I wrote down these words for myself. I've walked all the winding paths today. From now on, the road ahead will be straight and clear.